Hello everybody, my name is Brandon with Indycar Central, and today I'd like to do something that I hope I can do a lot more often this year, depending on a lot of various factors. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce, this is going to be the new podcast format. What the kind of the roundabout way of doing this is going to be, upload this to Instagram Live, and then once I get all the fine details done and stuff, I'm going to do a little bit of editing to the video. I'll upload them to YouTube, and then once we get it uploaded to YouTube, then I can spread it around, kind of get a little bit more program to it. But I figured this is better than spamming with 1,000 posts every week. So what I'll do is, I'm not going to do this at the middle of the month like I'm doing this now. More than likely what it'd be would be the end of every month, just so I can kind of write down like a list of like what's big in that month, and then we can go over in like the end of the month format style, where it'd be for like in 30 minutes to an hour at most, or just talk about IndyCar news, USF, big USF news, Indy Lights, all that stuff, anything particular. And then I could bring on fans and potentially get drivers on as well. As you guys know, I've done interviews in track and online with some people. I had a 30-minute sit-down conversation with Nolan Allure last year, Indy Next driver with HMD Motorsports. Really good sit-down, down-to-earth guy. Got to talk with him a little bit at Indy last year for the test in October. And then, of course, at the test in there, I did sit down with G3 Argyros and got to do an interview at the track with him on, I think it was the second day of the test for the USF Chris Griffith Memorial. And then, a lot of you guys would know, at PRI, the third day I was there, Ayrton Hauk was there representing one of his sponsors, and sat down with him for a couple minutes, just kind of asked him about stuff. He's going to be racing for a new team this coming season, and I want to say it's USF 2000. He got, his dad bought out a part of an old team, and they started it up, and they're running kind of a lot of what his old cars used to be, but his dad now owns the properties to it. So Ayrton's got a little bit of a more stable future heading into the season. But hello, we've had a lot of people join. We've had Ernesto Martinez. He's one of the key people that works for D-Force Racing, so good to have some people like him join. Ash Marine Nuth joined. Alejandro. Sam Argis joined. Hello, everybody. So we have kind of a lot to talk about today. But as I was saying, if anyone has any questions personally, if there's any questions you guys would like to ask me, feel free to leave them in the chat, and I will get to them eventually, because I am looking at my phone and I have the script right next to me as well to go off of. I also have my computer to kind of look off some things to make sure I'm getting my sources right. The worst thing I would ever do, would hope I would never get to do, is to inform you guys with the wrong info and facts. I don't want to lead you guys down a wrong path and potentially tell you guys info that isn't possibly correct. So without further ado, I'd like to get into it. The first story we have to do started all the way back, and I want to say the end of December leading into the first of the month. We had IndyCar and Aussie developing aluminum wheels, which that would save teams on a lot of money personally. The ones they have now cost, I want to say, millions in the round scheme of things. Not all at once, but if the total of the season, it would, and this would save them thousands. So that is a great thing that they're developing. They said that it wouldn't be this year. At most, it could be at the season finale at Nashville, but more than likely, it's either going to happen next year in 26, or at the very latest 2027. But the aluminum wheels more than likely is going to come out in 2026, from what I've been told from certain people and from what my understanding of the articles are. IndyCar 1909, hello, how are you? And then another thing we got to go, not IndyCar, but it's an IndyCar driver. It is Elio Castroneves to race in the Daytona 500 this year. That is in just a few short weeks in the middle of February. He will be racing for Trackhouse Racing in the Cup Series. The 91 will be the number. It's for their driver car that's like for... It's Project 91, that's what it is. It's where they get like foreign drivers from like different disciplines of racing. Former drivers in that car have been, I want to say it was Kimi Räikkönen and Shane Van Gisbergen. Gisbergen obviously came out and won with that car, and it has led to a lot of other teams taking chances on foreign-born drivers. And one thing that NASCAR did announce the other day is that will be a guaranteed spot no matter where he qualifies or finishes. Personally, not a big fan of that, but what essentially that means is if he qualifies ahead of all the open cars, he'll be 37th. Well, no, that's not what it means. He'll be in the field, and then the max we can have is 40. But say he's the last of the open cars, he'll be guaranteed a spot. He'll start 41st, and we can have a 41-car field. It's a lot more complicated than it sounds, or it's a lot less complicated than I'm explaining it. I'm just not the best at explaining these types of things. But essentially that means Castroneves is guaranteed into the Daytona 500. And not a big fan of the guaranteed spots, but that's how it is. Friar Doc, hello, how are you today? And then another IndyCar driver racing in another form of series this year, or this coming month, is actually this Friday. Santino Ferrucci will be in the Chili Bowl, racing in his prelim night on Friday, and if he makes it out of that, he'll be on Saturday for the Alphabet Soup. He'll be racing for Abacus Racing, which is a pretty decent midget team. Logan Seavey ended up winning the USAC title with them the year before last, actually, and in the USAC Sprint Car Series as well this year. So Abacus definitely known to win a lot. Logan Seavey is the reigning two-time Chili Bowl champion, actually. Santino Ferrucci's best known memory really in the Chili Bowl was in 2022 when he went head over heels into the catch fence. Actually ended up getting a concussion after that crash. And then we go on to the next story. David Malukas will be in the 4. That is the number they have unveiled for the 2025 season. AJ Foyt Racing obviously will be the team. And then Marco Andretti will be in the Indy 500 as well. No shocker there. He'll be in the 98 for Andretti Global. No sponsor or livery has been unveiled yet. Matte was the one to say what it was called last year. I might be wrong on that. I typically am with the pronunciations of these words. But no real shocker there. Marco's been running the Indy 500 as a one-off for the past 3 years. And he has been looking to try and get more into NASCAR. Obviously, last year he took a big step into that path, ran a lot of ARCA races, ran some Xfinity races, a couple truck races, and as well as a couple Trans Am races. So Marco Andretti looking to get into stock car racing, but will be running the 2025 Indy 500 for Marco, or for Andretti Global. That is if he qualifies into the field. Andretti not really known for having bad times at Indy, other than Marcus Ericsson last year. Did crash on the Fast Friday practice, though, so backup cars at Indy usually aren't a good mix, but we'll see come the month of May. And then Prema announced their liveries this year. Actually, I'll pull it up for you. We have our first one. Real quick, let me get to that for you. Here it is for you guys. This is the 83, which will be driven by Robert Schwartzman. And then the 90 is the same thing here, except this is a little bit more of a limer green. That will be driven by Callum Ilott. And then in that announcement, we also were given notice that Roman Grosjean will be the backup driver in case anything should happen to Callum Ilott or Robert Schwartzman. Grosjean obviously missed out on a chance of a ride this year. He was rumored to a bunch of different teams, obviously coming off a decent season last year with Junko Hollinger. Jacob, hello, how are you today? Sam, what do you think McLaughlin's chances for a podium in a GTD at the Rolex 24? That is something I am really looking forward to, actually. And something that I honestly kind of forgot to look at over in my script, so sorry about that. So, if you guys haven't heard, Trackhouse Racing will be fielding a Corvette in the GTD series in IMSA for the Rolex 24. Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilisch, and Scott McLaughlin will be in that car. Honestly, I think they're probably my pick to win that, because Zilisch has honestly been good in stock cars. He's been good in Trans Am, and I don't think he's personally ever driven a GTD car, but they're not too different in the grand scheme of things from a Trans Am car. Obviously, they're wickedly different, but like, it's not very hard to adjust accordingly. And obviously, coming out, IMSA experience for Zilisch has never been an issue. He won the Rolex 24 last year. He won the Sebring 12 Hours last year, both in LMP2s for the 18 Era Motorsport entry. And then he's also run MX5 Cup races. I want to say he's won a championship in that series. But yeah, honestly, they're my pick to win. Rolex, McLaughlin obviously drove the Tower number 8 LMP2 car for the past couple of years. Never really had luck in that car. So honestly, I really do hate to say this, but out of the three, I'd say probably McLaughlin is the least likely to pull clutch out of that entry. That's not to shit on McLaughlin. He's a great driver. It's just his IMSA results at Daytona have never been the best. But outside of Daytona, McLaughlin's a damn good driver. So I'd be interested to see how that would work. Honestly, I feel like that's not necessarily up to Scott's driving talent. It's been mainly just bad luck with that number 8 Tower entry that they've ran the past couple of years. Obviously, the year before last, they wrecked on lap 1, and then last year, I want to say they made it halfway before something happened, and they ended up finishing back up 50 laps down. I want to say that's what happened. And then, obviously, we go into Meyer Shank Racing. They have, in my opinion, they have the best lineup in IMSA at the moment. They're my pick to win the GTP class. And personally, I think Era is going to go back-to-back in LMP2. GTD would be, I got Trackhouse winning it. And honestly, I want to say Rexy is my pick to win GTD Pro. They did really solid last year. They won the championship last year, so they're riding on great momentum, so that's something that they can carry with them. But honestly, whenever they can get good momentum going, Rexy is one of the most unstoppable cars in the IMSA GTD Pro class. But those are my picks. Personally, I believe that 91 for Trackhouse is going to be a fun one to watch. I might go live a couple of times during it, and I might give you guys an IndyCar update after the end of the Rolex 24-hour update where all the IndyCar drivers did. And I'll let you guys know who's all going to be competing in it once I get the full lineup. There's obviously a couple rides that haven't had their full lineups unveiled, but I want to say most of the IndyCar surprise entries are done, so I'll let you guys know if I find anything else out. Going into our next story, Jacob Abel will be in the Dale Coyne Racing 51. Not really a shocker. He wasn't on my rumor list for that car. I had a few other ones. I'm not allowed to speak because obviously they're rumors. But there was a few other ones. A couple Indy Lex drivers that ran that car last year I honestly thought had a better shot. Abel's never ran a race, so this will be interesting in a month when they go to St. Pete and see how that would happen. I kind of knew he was going to IndyCar, I just didn't know where, and then it finally started to make sense after a while. And I figured, well, Abel was really only had 1 or 2 options left, and I want to say Dale Coyne would have been the most realistic for him. But coming off a really good Indy next season, I want to say he finished second in the points. Won a few races last year. And so, yeah, that's going to be interesting. He's going to throw his hat into the Rookie of the Year battle. So it'll be interesting to see how that's going to turn out. I will get my predictions made come the middle of February. There's some ones that I'm going to go over those as well in this one once I get done with all the stories. So it'll be interesting to see how that was. I honestly hope the best for Jacob, so that's something we like to look forward to. Now we talk about something that I'm not too huge of a fan on. Ed Carpenter Racing has unveiled their new logo for their team, and I'm going to show you all what that is. Here it is. It looks like this. Not a huge fan of it. Honestly, it kind of just reminds me of sorry about that. Trying to remember what the sponsor name is, because there is a specific type of logo that I honestly think it reminds me of. I'll be... Alright, sorry about that. But I honestly think it rips off a sponsor. I want to say it's called OBS, but that's neither here or there. The old one I like better. We are in the simplicity era, and that is kind of killing logos, I want to say, but that's their decision to make. It doesn't affect the team's performance. Just a little cosmetic stuff. So, then we go into probably the biggest news drop of today. Fox Sports has unveiled their broadcast lineup for the 2025 Indycar on Fox season. No shocker here, Townsend Bell, James Hinchcliffe make their return to the booth, and we add a newcomer, Will Buxton. Will Buxton's obviously made his name known in the FIA junior formula stuff. He's done some F1. I think F1 TV, he's done a couple of them. And he actually got his start about a decade ago doing IndyCar races as a pit reporter for, I want to say it was Versus or it was ESPN. I'd have to look that up, but he is no stranger to IndyCar. He's got IndyCar experience, so don't think he's coming into this with no experience. Personally, he wouldn't have been my first choice, but I do agree he is a good broadcaster. So, happy to have Will Buxton on board. And it's always good to have someone new come into the sport. And then we go into our first Indy Next story of the day. Tommy Smith, another guy that we have sniped out of the Formula One ladder program, is going to be driving the 16 for HMD Motorsports for the 2025 season. The sponsor will be Shell, so it will be very similar to Joseph Newgarden's livery. We actually do have a photo of that. It was announced yesterday. Here it is. One of the best looking Indy Next cars we've seen personally so far. It is the only one we've seen for this season get unveiled, but that is that right there. Excuse me. And then Devlin DeFrancesco has unveiled their EV Tech livery. And if I can get that pulled up for you, I'll show you that. A lot of people, from what I've seen, quite love it, quite like it. I do. I think it's a solid looking livery. And then we get into probably the biggest news drop of the off season, and this is nothing confirmed yet. But I've heard Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal talk about it. So if he's talking about it, it's probably pretty credible. Once it gets confirmed, I will most certainly do a post on it. But Tom Brady, yes, 7-time NFL quarterback champion Tom Brady. Jimmy Johnson, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, who did drive for Chip Ganassi racing in IndyCar for 2 seasons. And Chip Ganassi will be co-fielding a car for this year's Indy 500. From what I've heard, the sponsor will be Carvana. And Sebastian Bourdais will be the driver. What a stacked lineup. Jimmy Johnson, Tom Brady, and Chip Ganassi. Bourdais, obviously a 4-time kart champion, or champ car at the time. And he's won about 5 races in the IRL IndyCar series, so no stranger to driving. He's been out of the sport for a few years. I want to say 2021 was his last season he's ran. So he's been out of it for a couple of years, but I don't think that'll deter him Sebastian is one of the most versatile guys. He's also been running an IMSA the past 2 years with Chip Ganassi Racing, as Chip Ganassi did fold their IMSA program this year. So, but he has stated he will be coming back to IMSA, so he's not been out of a race car. So Sebastian Bourdais, Tom Brady, Chip Ganassi, and Jimmy Johnson will be fielding a fourth car for Chip Ganassi Racing in this year's Indianapolis 500. So, I'd like to take a moment to go over my predictions for the 2024 IndyCar season. Some of these was pretty damn good, and others I fell right on my face, and I happen to have fell more on my face than others. So I will be looking at the predictions for last year and going over just how much of a simpleton I just so happen to be. So without further ado, here we go. These were last year's predictions. So my first one was 8 or more winners. And that, we almost had that happen. We had 7. So 7 winners was that prediction. That one did not follow. And then Linus Lundqvist did win Rookie of the Year, so I got that one. Scott Dixon announces he will be retiring. That, honestly, I don't know where that came from. I want to say I got told at the beginning of the year from a reliable source that I know that he was, and obviously he's not. Graham Rahal will win again based on the momentum coming out of 2023. I honestly thought that would have been a good one. He almost won at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Almost beat Scott Dixon, but just couldn't get it to work. And Paddle Ward wins 3 more races. He got 3 wins. Technically, he got 2 if you guys are under the disqualification, didn't count bandwagon, but I'm not. It goes into the record books as he won 3 races, so Paddle Ward did win 3 races. So I got that one. I got 2 out of 5 so far. And that's a bad one. Nolan Siegel is the 2024 Indy Next champion. Obviously, that didn't happen. Louis Foster won it. And Nolan Siegel would have had a good shot at it, I believe. But obviously, as you guys know, mid-season, they fired Teo Porcher, who replaced David Malukas. And they decided we're going to give Nolan Siegel a full-time ride at McLaren. So they axed him from the season, and he ended up going to IndyCar full-time. Number 7, Alex Palou will win the Indy 500. I've been going off a recent trend lately. He's had a couple of close calls. Obviously, in 2023, he could have won it before Rinus VeeKay got contact with him on pit road. So, obviously, Newgarden went back-to-back this year. My prediction for this year is that Pato O'Ward will break through and finally win it. Could be very wrong. Will Power goes winless, number 8. Another one I was wrong with. I was also wrong with number 9. So, Will Power obviously didn't go winless, and if he wouldn't have self-spun on a restart at Milwaukee, he probably would have won a title. Self-spun on a restart at Milwaukee, and then the belts came loose in Nashville, and that prevented him from winning a title. And then obviously no flips this season was wrong. Good buddy Nolan Siegel ended up flipping on qualifying day 1. And or was it Fast Friday? I think it was Fast Friday is when it happened. And then obviously you had Stingray Robb and Santina Ferrucci flip at Iowa and Toronto. And Nico Christodoulou flipped at Indy for the GP weekend. And then Augie Sharopa flipped at VIR. And then there was another one at Road America. I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't at the moment. So those are my predictions for 2024. I got number 2 and number 5 correct. So, horrible predictions. So, I'll let the new ones be unveiled probably in the coming week. So I'm going to wait for a little bit because obviously not all the fine details have been unveiled, but these are the ones from this year. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you have all enjoyed. I plan on doing this more than a couple more times. I said that horribly wrong. I plan on doing this a lot more times this year. I want to do this like a once a month thing, preferably at the end of every month, just to try and go over news, just to try and do some interactive stuff with people, followers. I like doing that stuff. It's really cool to do. And as I said, if I could somehow manage to get an IndyCar driver on here, or a USF or an Indy Next driver, I would love to do that as well. So if anyone has any suggestions, reach out to me personally, and I would love to hear you guys' input. So with that, my name is Brandon Rutter with IndyCar Central. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a nice rest of your January.